Hey guys, it's been a while since we've done a face-to-face, but here I am, and the year's basically over, but better late than never. It's been a pretty eventful year, and that's partly why I haven't been very present here and making as many videos, because I just had a lot of goals that I wanted to accomplish, and I have accomplished a good number of them, honestly. But the other half of my time was taken just really pondering and thinking. I mean, when don't I ponder and when don't I think? You know, that's kind of just how it's always been for me, at least. But it's kind of brought me to a lot of conclusions of just how done, maybe I guess the word is, I am with everything going on in the world right now. There's no better way to say it than that. Because I just see the pressure that so many people are under now. And I know it wasn't always like that. I mean, people have always been under pressure. You know, life is not easy for anyone in any period of time in our human history, of course. But I just see now just how incessant the media and all other forms of distraction are trying to grab hold of the attention of people who are really discontent with the state of things. Like, try to keep you, you know, focused on the next product to buy, or the next, you know, fight, the next fight to fight, the next conflict to take up arms about. And honestly, it's really just so transparent at this time. Like, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I just see all of these manufactured, like, these factions that just cropping up for different causes and different things that really shouldn't be a problem in this supposed advanced time we live in. We're still fighting the same fights, warring about the same things, you know, men versus women, and, you know, LGBT versus, you know, the straight people, whatever, and political lines, Democrat versus Republican. There's always a new fight, and there's always one, like, take your pick. There's just so many that you could that you can kind of find and participate in. In fact, they want you to participate in as many as possible, and that'll keep your energy kind of, you know, stretched, so stretched that you can't really take time to consider or put energy into things that really could make the world a better place. Because fighting and clashing heads and is not really going to get us anywhere, and it's just a screaming match at this point with so many of these fights, and it's so exhausting to see and watch and hear the same things, just with a different face, with a different name, are just going on all the time. It's always a new tragedy, it's always a new political plight, it's always a new hysteria, and I have had enough. And I know a lot of people have had enough. And a lot of people have kind of been receding into themselves because they've had enough, which is kind of what I've been doing as well. Because there's but so much you can speak on about it before it turns into you're giving energy to it as well. And I try my best not to do that. You know, I haven't always been successful because it gets aggravating just hearing about the aggravation. And, but yeah, I've had to take that step back just because of that, because it's really, you kind of see how crazy things are, and they tell you things aren't crazy. Oh, we're great, everything's cool, we're living in the best time of our lives, and inflation is down, and we're woker than ever. And it's just, you know, it's so superficial, and it's not even about the fact of being, like, quote unquote woke, or quote unquote, like, I don't know, an activist, whatever, I don't know, or on the right side of history. That's kind of what it's really about when it boils down to all of these things. It's not really about that. I think it's really just about kind of like ideological domination, and not just between the warring sides of any fight. I think it's really just about, you know, the ones who encourage these plights, these fights, you know, to go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. It's about them having control over the masses, keeping them under so much pressure with the financial strain of today. It's really we've kind of been taught to fake it to make it, just pretend everything's fine and everything's lovely, and you know, the faking is kind of getting a little wearisome and worrisome. Is wearisome a word? I don't know. I'm gonna look that up. But yeah, it's kind of getting a little much, and people can't really ignore that much that it's getting for much longer. And I don't think people really are. I think people are really kind of waking up to the nonsense that this whole thing has been, that this whole thing is being. But yeah, and that's kind of why my energy has kind of been not really here, not really anywhere. I don't know, I just have these bursts of creativity and these bursts of I need to be a hermit. I need to be like within myself and really thinking. I've always been thinking, you know, that's just one of my traits, is just always thinking, always wondering what the best way to grow is as a person, or the best way to approach things, or to improve my mental health. Because that's another thing that's taken a blow for so many people, is mental health, and nobody ever talks about that. Like, they normalize, you know, either oh yes, I'm good, you know, and nobody's ever really good, you know. That's just, you know, somebody asks, how's your day? What do you say? Oh, it's great, going good, you know. And of course you don't want to dump all your psychological hang-ups on the strangers, but it's just very interesting how it's normalized that you just kind of ignore these things. They keep pressing on until you can't ignore it anymore, and then it becomes a breakdown, and you do something that you regret, say something that you regret. It's really something that is too heavily medicated, and I don't think enough emphasis is placed on what you can do yourself to heal and take care of yourself, because you don't really have time to take care of yourself. If you're working a full-time job, or if you're working like freaking 60 hours a week, like what energy do you have to put, you know, to put place towards yourself? And I think they count on that, and you know who they are. I lost the plot for a second. I lost my train of thought. All that to say that people really don't have the time to take care of themselves, or to prioritize themselves, because they're too busy trying to survive, too busy trying to appease this societal expectation that's been upheld and accepted for years upon years upon years upon years, you know. And nobody's ever really taken care of themselves these days, not mentally, not in terms of time, not emotionally, not even physically, because everything is just curated to live externally. Everybody's living externally now, buying this thing, and you know, it's a comfort because you're treating yourself, but you can buy but so many things before you recognize that it's not really fixing anything within you. Or you can accomplish all of these external things that they tell you to accomplish, and you can do but so much of that before you recognize, hey, that's not going to fix anything within me either. But they keep selling this idea that all of these things are going to do that, or that your worth somehow is inherent upon or dependent upon the accomplishment of those things, or lack thereof. And I feel like a lot of people in their 20s are kind of in that state of recognizing, hey, I'm not really living how these people on social media are living. I'm not traveling to freaking the Maldives and some other lavish island that doesn't come to mind right now. But everybody's comparing themselves to lives that simply aren't attainable to the average Joe. Even if you were to play by the rules and do everything they tell you to do, or want all the things they tell you to want. And that's really where one has to come to the conclusion of, oh, I'm gonna live my life the way I want to live it, and I'm going to create my own path, and I'm not gonna let anyone, you know, whether they mean well or not, to dictate or try to sway me on how I want to, you know, navigate this thing, because I'm here, I might as well live it my way. And that's the conclusion I've slowly been coming to, because I've always been a person who has had this proclivity to appease others or live or pretend to live in such a way that would make others feel better. But, I got a long ways to go before this thing's over, so I might as well start now and really really prioritize myself and not give credence to this rat race that everyone's so caught up in. Everybody isn't going to be pleased by the choices that you make on your life. People are always going to have an opinion, and opinions weigh so heavy when you're young. And I'm still like in a place where I'm kind of like trying not to give a damn about what people think. It's easier for some people than others, and for the people just like me who have wanted to please people and appease people, at the expense of their own happiness and mental health. I say it's time to change that, because ultimately everything is built to distract you, to stress you out, to confuse you, and to keep you in a mental state of separation from others. You're either in conflict with them, you're either trying to bring them over to your team, you're trying to appease them, or you're trying to like avoid them altogether, just out of fear, that has been instilled. These little illusions of grandeur and all this stuff is ultimately irrelevant in the grand scheme of everything. I know it's kind of getting a little rambly, but I don't know, it's just a packet of my thoughts that I had on that. I also had something I wanted to read, just in terms, because I've also noticed, I don't know, it just really feels like, it feels like when it comes to femininity or being like female, it's almost like perceived as regressive to embrace your femininity these days. And it took me a while for me to be even secure in my femininity, like just especially being someone who never had, that kind of I didn't have that kind of grace with femininity, or I didn't perform femininity in the way that most girls did, when I was back then. Doesn't mean I was any less female back then for it, or that I'm any more female now. But, I have some thoughts on it, because I just feel like these girls today are just going to grow up so much more uncomfortable than we did. I mean, of course, growing up, from a child to a teen to an adult, it's a pretty rocky process, and it's not a great feeling all the time. You're gonna be insecure, but I just feel like now, girls these days, they hate their inherent femininity, and they feel like they kind of have to cut themselves off from it. Just like, ooh, that's not me. And you don't have to do that. And that's not to say like, because if you're a tomboy, you're denying your femininity. No, that's your personality. That's what you like. That's what, like, have at it. And I'm not telling anyone how to express themselves, but I just don't want people to think that because they are born a certain way that they have to kind of overcompensate for it. And that's kind of what I've been seeing. And that can wear on authenticity, that can wear on your happiness after a while. But enough prelude. Let me just read this excerpt that I have right here. Just put my glasses on, because your girl needs them. Okay, here it is. I don't know what young person needs to hear it, but being feminine as a female is okay. And so is being masculine as a female, of course. I know the trend now, and has been for a few years, is to be as far away from traditional feminine qualities as possible. Otherwise, you're under the thumb of an oppressive system regarded as the patriarchy. But you don't have to accept that as the case. If you like what you like and it happens to fall under the typical proclivities attributed to a girl/woman, please enjoy it without guilt. It isn't a step backwards to be who you are and live as you enjoy. If anything, it's a testament to your power and freedom. You have a choice. This applies in the opposite situation as well. If what you like happens to fall under more masculine qualities, please enjoy it without guilt. Your you-ness is not to be diminished. We're multifaceted, and partaking or not partaking in this or that activity, style of clothing, or vocation doesn't mean that you have defected in some way to the other side or that you're doing it wrong. I've just noticed this sad trend of almost hating being feminine in social media and trying to move as far away from it as possible for fear of not fulfilling your full potential as a woman or being oppressed. Paradoxically, this creates that oppression, but one that's self-imposed. In summation, don't let social media be your teacher. I know trauma can be a major reason for this, and shoot, I only just started really embracing my feminine side last year, and I'm 26 now. And maybe this is a coping mechanism for some, possibly many of you, to tuck away that softer side and not settle down, to rebel against what was expected so you aren't hurt in the same way again. And sometimes for a time, you gotta do that. But it's so easy to pass that sentiment around in social media, to see it oh so subtly suggested, normalize that you have to place your innate femininity, whatever form that may take or to whatever extent that may be, at the altar in order to be of value, to be heard, to exist. And I'll never ever be the one to say, just get over your trauma, because it's a process. It's in stages, and scars take time to heal. And maybe you come out a different person, and maybe you don't see the merit in being yourself, and maybe you feel like the best escape is to reject the softness of femininity altogether, to cast out a facet of yourself and to belong to something else. And yes, it's going to take time to figure yourself out. It's a lifelong process. But you don't owe anyone, be it an individual or societal trends as a whole, or performance. A stay-at-home mother is no less free than a female entrepreneur with 3 businesses. A traveling and successful businesswoman is no more aligned with her purpose than a woman content to tend to the more tender things in life. I know social media would have us believe it's now almost distasteful to want to be soft as a woman, to be submissive or nurturing. This idea has been planted that desiring this is anti-feminist in this day and age of unlearning. But wanting those things does not speak to any inherent lack within you. Not wanting those things doesn't speak to any divergence from your innate you-ness as a female. When some of the healing's done, don't be what you aren't, and don't be ashamed of what you are. Be honest with yourself. Dare to be multifaceted, and dare to be so without guilt. I just wanted to share that because, it's very sad, honestly, to me. Especially someone who never really felt or hadn't felt very in touch with their femininity until recently, that so many people, whether consciously or otherwise, are, kind of just rejecting themselves in a way, and it kind of feels like a disguised form of, it's definitely trauma, and we've all got it, and it manifests in different ways. But I just don't like this goading of the war between like men and women, or masculinity and femininity. And I've had my videos, I've taken my shots on those topics, but you can check it out right here, or right here. I just think it's important to embrace both, because we are comprised of both. One side more prominent in the person than another, but it doesn't mean the other side doesn't exist at all, not even a little bit. But I just want to say that I don't know, this world the way it is now is kind of just manufactured and in such a way that encourages people to reject parts of themselves, or to rebel against themselves in a way. And I don't know, I feel like that could do more harm than good down the line. But other than that, I've said my words. What are yours? Please leave a comment, like, subscribe, do all the good things. I'll be here, and I will be I'll have more to say later. I don't know when I'll post my next video, but I'll try to make it as soon as possible. Thanks for listening so far, and I'd love to hear what you think. Take care. Thanks for watching.